I'm 16 and I've never met a person close to my age or younger playing League, and it sucks. No, it's definitely rough. Like, again, the League player base tends to be aging, and so it's harder, especially as a young person, to find people who play League. And that makes it even worse to play League because, like, you know, when you play a game, it's way more fun if you have people your age to play it with, right? Like, I played Team Fortress 2 with all my buddies in high school, and that was, like, the best time ever. And then when I got into League, I was in college, and there was other guys at my college who played League, so we all played it together and had a great time, right? Guys and girls, actually. There was a girl at my college who I really liked who played League, and we played League a lot together as well. And it's just like, you know, having those people who, what's the word? Having those people who, like, can share in your hobby with you in regards to games is really important. So it's definitely rough when, like, the game you like playing isn't played as much by your peers. Do you think it would be possible for League to cater to both the older and younger audiences? I mean, maybe. There's just a lot of complications when it comes to making games that especially younger people continue to play. So as an example, one of the complications is control scheme. Kids nowadays are raised on iPads, whereas, you know, back in my day, you grew up with a mouse and a PC and you played games like StarCraft, which the StarCraft control scheme was RTS, which the League control scheme is based off of, right? And so if you were a gamer when League came out, it was pretty likely you understood how to control League of Legends. That's no longer the case. Kids nowadays are raised on iPads. A lot of kids don't have a PC, and if they do, they don't really use it for games. A lot of kids don't know how to use mouse and keyboard to control a game. It's very foreign to them. And if they do know how to use mouse and keyboard, it's usually WASD for things like, you know, first-person shooters, Fortnite, Valorant. And so a lot of kids, they just don't understand League's control scheme, and it's very hard to, like, figure it out and get into it. A lot of kids don't even, like, use consoles. A lot of kids don't know how to use a controller. And most of them are, like, more used to phones and touchscreens. And so it's this, that's like a complication you want to think about, and, like, you know, making games for future generations is how generations grow up and play. One of the things I think back in the day that was brilliant about Overwatch, I think Overwatch, for, you know, all its, like, long-term decisions, I think came out as a game set up to just giga succeed because they did so many things correct. One of the things I think Overwatch did incredibly well is they opened up first-person shooters to be played by a wider range of players based on controls. Because when you played older first-person shooters, you know, it's like, okay, well, I gotta be an aim god. That's how shooters work, right? Whereas, like, Overwatch has characters like Mercy and Winston where you can just kind of, like, fly around and not really aim at people. And some of you might be like, well, those characters are low skill. And I'd be like, no, they're not the same skill as Widowmaker, but they open up that game to an entirely new group of players who didn't grow up learning how to aim on a first-person shooter. And I think that's actually, like, a really, really good thing. This is one of the reasons I think characters like Sage are actually really important for Valorant. The thing about Sage is Valorant's actually a really hard to play game. Like, there's a lot you have to learn. Aiming is really tough. But at the very least, if you play a character like Sage in Valorant, you can just sit back and heal your buddy. I have a friend who I got into Valorant, and how I got her into Valorant is I just told her to play Sage and heal me and then kill the people who killed me. Like, that was what we would do, is we would stick together. She knew her utility buttons, and then I was also like, and if anybody shoots me, pull out your gun and shoot them back. You've got this. And, you know, the game was, like, pretty tough at the start, but by having that, like, more accessible spot to enter in, where it's like it wasn't as much about shooting and more about just having fun playing with a friend and helping, it was able to, like, for her to get into Valorant, and then eventually she got higher ranked than I did. So she eventually, like, got a hand in the controls and, like, you know, like, popped off and, you know, is a really good player now. But, you know, it's like she might not have enjoyed the game if she had to, like, her first experience on it was having to have perfect mechanics on Jet, as an example. And so, yeah, just kind of mentioning that, like, getting new generations of players, you have to consider, like, how they grow up with games, how they understand games, and they're not going to have the same learnings and access to stuff that other generations had. And that's a complicated thing with a game like League of Legends is, yeah. I think, like, this is one of the reasons that, like, games like Minecraft are kind of like forever games. One of the things is Minecraft is always, like, you know, updating where it can be played. you know, consoles, PCs, phones, stuff like that. But then also Minecraft is just like, it's something that just inherently appeals to younger people, right? Like Minecraft is like, oh, it's Legos on the PC, right? Incredible game. And it's like, it's one of the reasons that it can last for so long, aside from being incredible, is it's not necessarily about what's cool right now. It's like, it turns out for when you're in high school and middle school, something that's always going to be cool, or elementary school even, is something that's always going to be cool is like building and creating, right? Like there's just tons of kids who love doing that, and Minecraft is like right there for them. Where it's more challenging with a competitive multiplayer game, because, you know, while competitive multiplayer games are fun, like one of the reasons that competitive multiplayer games are fun is that your friends think it's cool. Yeah. And you know, especially for the younger audiences, it like changes year to year what they think is cool. How come we have so few old person characters? I can only think of Zillion right now. One of the reasons is that it's hard to do appealing old people characters. This doesn't mean you can't do them. I would argue actually League probably needs a few more old people, like older characters. I think that would actually just be good for the game and good for our roster. The hard part about older characters, it is hard to do them in ways that appeal to the audience. That doesn't mean you can't do it. I want to be very clear. Like sometimes people will be like, you shouldn't do older characters because no one likes them, or you shouldn't do monsters because no one likes them. I disagree with that assertion. I think many different archetypes of characters you can do. You just have to find the ways to make them appeal. As an example, Zillion, not the most appealing character, but there are definitely versions of older Time Mage that I think could be very appealing and very fun and very cool. And so, yeah, it's kind of just this complexity of how do you make a character from that archetype in a way that a decent number of players find appealing. And honestly, I think there's a lot of ways to do it, and I think we maybe don't do it as well as we could. Like, I think Reinhardt is a pretty decent example of like a really appealing older character. I think he does a good job at it, as an example. Reinhardt from Overwatch. Also, someone mentioned stuff like Doctor Strange. I wouldn't count characters who are technically old but don't look old. Like, I don't think that counts. Like, oh yeah, they're a 3,000-year-old dragon. Like, no, stop it. Right? Like, that's not what I'm getting at here. I mean characters who actually are older people, right? That's what I mean by older characters. I love 3,000-year-old dragons, Dragomaster, of course, naturally. But yeah, that said, the space is difficult. I want to like recognize that the space is difficult. Just turns out, if you want to make a character that's really appealing, you make a cool cyber ninja, right? It's like, okay, but that doesn't mean you can't make other characters. It's just when you're talking about like things that are, it's like a difference between like easy and hard, right?